This is SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I am your host, Todd Kirk. I'm joined by my co-host, Casey Trujillo, and today we are going to ask you to do something a little bit different. We're going to ask you to tune into the video version of this podcast if you haven't before, mostly so that you can look at Casey's beautiful face,
Yes.
but also some other things too, I'm sure.
Well, Todd, we figured that we should get out some celebration because we were just announced as in the top 10, number 7 most influential podcast, right?
For CS, I mean, the most influential. Are we going to say we're the most influential of every podcast ever made? Yes, totally. We absolutely are in the top 10.
We could go with that. But thank you to everybody that listens. We appreciate that, and we thought we would celebrate with making you more productive. So in a past episode, Todd and I discussed ADKAR. We discussed the DOT framework. And one of the things that we discussed is if I was in CS or customer ed and my customer asked me to do some training, I would not do product training. Just no way in hell I'd do it. The only 2 things I would do is either I'm doing the art of the possible sessions with leadership or people that maybe in security or compliance that can force everyone to use my software. I'm doing deep dives with them. Other than that, I'm giving short tips and tricks to the average user to say, wow, that would be so cool to work that way. I don't need to teach you how to log in. I don't need to teach you how to go create a signature or whatever basic functionality. Don't do that. That's what microlearning's for. In a session where you're doing training, it should get people excited to use your product and say, that's such a better way to work. So Mr. Todd Kirk, Mr. TK is so kind that he's going to actually show you a way in your own life to be more productive. Now, you might not use all these software applications that Todd's going to show you. I think a majority of you will. So when Todd said at the beginning, hey, you should tune into YouTube to see this, is because he's going to do some screen sharing. He's going to walk through that. Now, if you're on our audio component.
Or Spotify has the video.
Right? Yeah. If you're going to listen to it, I think you'll understand what he's doing and it'll make sense, but obviously more impactful if you can actually see it. TK, is that the right setup? Did I do that all okay?
You totally did. And I think it should be great for everybody. So as a reminder, if you normally just listen to the podcast, that'll be fine for today, but it's going to be much better because I'm going to, back in a past life, I used to do professional services and I train a lot on software. So what we thought would be fun was give you some tips using software, and maybe that gives you some inspiration of how you might approach your own training. And hopefully I'm not terrible at this, even though I'm a little out of practice, not what I normally do anymore. But hopefully it'll be some really cool tricks that'll get you excited. And the more you can learn to be productive with your own software and learn about the things that get you excited, the more that might help you as you think about how to get your own customers excited about your software. So that's kind of what we're hoping. That's a double whammy. You'll get some good stuff out of this. I'm going to focus primarily today on how to use Outlook. Now, Casey, you're still using what Microsoft will call now the legacy version of Outlook. They have a new Outlook, and most people haven't switched to it yet. And so my goal here in large part is to convince Casey that he should move to the new Outlook.
It's all lies.
I've seen Casey's screen. He's still using the old version.
And
there's a new Outlook, and he doesn't want to bite the bullet and switch.
I just throw Todd off by using the old one, but I actually use the new one when he's not looking.
I don't believe you, Casey. Whatever. No. He's like, oh, Todd's coming. Switch back to the legacy version. So, So if you are a longtime Outlook user, hopefully you'll learn some new things because Microsoft's made a lot of updates to Outlook over the last couple of years. And some people have really struggled with that change. And so understanding the change management process is helpful as we look at this so that you can feel more comfortable with it. And if you are a Microsoft customer, as an example, and you feel uncomfortable with this shift or you're frustrated by it, maybe this will be a session for you to help you get a little bit more excited about some of the things that Microsoft's been working on. Does that sound like a good plan, Casey?
I'm already excited, Todd. Let's do this.
Okay. So to Casey's point today, I'm going to share my screen. So that's the main reason I'm going to hop into a demo account of a Microsoft user using the new Outlook. And hopefully that will give you a little bit of a taste here. So first things first, if you are new to Outlook, Outlook is a lot different than things that you might use in your personal life. The way Gmail presents their mail traditionally is very different. First thing you notice is when I come in here, I have what's called my message list. And then I have a thing over on the right that takes up a big amount of space called the reading pane. Now, if you click through your messages here, it will show you your different messages on the reading pane. Well, if you're a longtime user inside of Outlook and you don't like, you're a longtime user in Gmail and you don't like that, you have the ability to change this to make it look more like Gmail. So first of all, let's click on the settings gear up in the top corner. And if I go over here to layout, will be the first tab. I'm going to scroll down through here. There's a few things that are amazing. So one is the reading pane. I can turn it off by switching over to full screen. If I do that, now if you look at this, it looks a lot like Gmail. All of my
Oh,
messages now show
dang.
up in a list, right? And if I click it, it takes me into that message. If I click the X, it takes me out of the message. So it feels a lot more like Gmail in that case. So maybe that's a big deal for you if you're new to Outlook. I prefer the reading pane, so I'm going to turn that back on. Casey, I think, actually likes the bottom reading pane view, and it shows his messages over the top because then you can see more context on the message, like when it was
Yes.
sent and how big it is and whether it's a meeting. So you can put it on the bottom if you like to. That's a good option as well. And then you can see your message list, but then you can still click through your email messages below. Okay. So that's the first thing. Now, the other piece, though, if you're a longtime Outlook user and you switch to this new version, one thing that people struggle with is that there's this concept called the ribbon in Outlook. And across the top here, it has all these different features and it looks way simplified in the new version. This little button, this little chevron right here in the new Outlook, if you click it, you can go back to the classic ribbon. So even though it is a new version of Outlook with new features, you can still make it look like your old Outlook if you really want to. So Casey, if that's a blocker for you, just know that's an option you can change. Now, the cool part about this, though, is there's some other really beneficial pieces to this. And here's one of my favorites. So one of the ways that Outlook gets really, really powerful, and I'm going to go back to my preferred view here, back to the right view, and I'm going to add something else. So do you ever get a lot of messages from the same person? So I'll give you an
Yes.
example. Casey sends me a lot of messages. And for me, Casey and I work a lot with the same customers. So it's really beneficial to know when I get a message from Casey, but I have a lot of other noise in there. So one of the capabilities that exists in Outlook is this feature right here called conditional formatting. And I'm going to add a rule and I'm going to say anytime I get a message from my boss, and that's say that I get a message, let's say my boss's name is Paolo here. And if I get a message from my boss, maybe I want to have that message be highlighted as red. So it's really obvious that I got that from my boss. When I click save, now watch this. If I look back in my inbox, can you see all the messages that are from my boss? Did you
Right.
know that those were all messages from my boss before? Now they're all highlighted red. That's called conditional formatting. Big time saver if you are someone who works with customers that are really like, let's say your top customer. I want to track any message that comes in from this customer. Now that message will be highlighted for you. So it's very easy to see in the future. Casey, I see nodding. Did you know that feature existed? I'm curious.
No idea, Todd. No idea. I love that.
Okay. Now let's talk about another one that I love as a new feature that exists in the new Outlook. How often do we get messages like this one? So let's say I get an employee satisfaction survey. That's what this one is. Or maybe you subscribe to a newsletter and the newsletter is really great. But what happens if you got 3 surveys that you're supposed to answer and you know the last one's the one that really matters or they expire after a certain period of time? Or, you know, you get a status update from your team once a week, but
Yeah.
the ones from 2 months ago you don't really care about. Well, one of the features that exists inside of Outlook that's part of the new Outlook only is this idea called sweep. And what sweep
Hmm.
does is it allows you to remove messages from your inbox that are from a certain sender that are after a certain time period. So notice here,
That's
always
awesome.
move messages that are older than 10 days from my inbox. Maybe I want to archive it. Maybe it's important, so I don't want to lose it. You could archive it or you could automatically have it be deleted. And when you set up this rule, then any messages from this specific sender are automatically removed from my inbox if they're past 10 days. Now, you'll notice that one disappeared because it was old, right? Isn't that cool? So anytime you have, it's a really quick way and you can set up that rule. So just as soon as that message gets 10 days old, it's like, bam, it's gone. It's taken out of your inbox. And then that way it cleans up, sweeps up your inbox for you automatically. Love that capability. Now, you can also add rules. Rules have been a concept that have been around in Outlook
Forever, right?
since the very beginning, but they're just as cool as they used to be. So you can see there's a couple in here. You can show descriptions if you write out what they actually are. Really powerful to see that. To create a new rule, you name it, and then you have conditions. And there's all these different things you can do. So like if I get a message from a certain person, then I want an action to occur. or if my name is on the CC line. So that's a really powerful one. Or if the message is directly to me. So maybe you're being CC'd, it's not as important. You can change the actions. If the subject includes certain words, right? Or if the body of the message includes certain words. So you could actually set rules to categorize or flag something based off of, I don't know, sentiment or negative words or a feature mention if you're in CS. So you can say that, oh, this customer is angry. I need to flag it so that it pops up for me automatically. And you can add those rules, right? Maybe I want to move it to a different area. Maybe I want to mark it with an importance level. Maybe I want to categorize it so it's easy for me to find. And all of that will make those things pop for you in your inbox. Maybe you want to set it up to where it would automatically pin it at the top of your inbox, right? So that's another thing. You can pin messages at the top of your inbox if they become important. Maybe you want to route it to someone. So if it's something that has to do support, you can automatically forward a message to support if it meets certain criteria, so it's captured for your ticketing system. There's really, really powerful features that exist like that when you use rules, but are you thinking through those use cases? That's a really critical piece that you need to consider as you go through this. Now,
TK,
let me
I'm going to pause with everybody. So I want to point out what Todd's doing so far. I hope you've noticed that. So number one, he started with saying maybe you're a worker that is used to another software application and you maybe feel comfortable. Then you talked me through sifting through the pile of communication and you showed me conditional formatting and sweeping, right? And each time when you noticed something from me, you said, hey, Casey, see how that was of interest to you, right? Talk to the audience, TK, before you go to this next feature of just how you're presenting and why you're presenting the way you are.
Yeah. So for me, one of the things when it comes down to presenting any information to a customer is, one, you want to empathize with them and understand where they are. So that's why, as an example, I shared, hey, maybe you're coming from Gmail and you never used this before. Or, hey, have you ever had this situation occur? It's really
Yeah.
important to show that either A, you understand them and their pain point and you empathize with them, and that this is going to be better, because you're trying to paint a better state. And if people understand their current state isn't ideal, then they're going to be less resistant about moving to the new state. Too
Awesome.
often when it comes to change management, we don't address the fact that the user is comfortable where they are, and they're
Right.
not going to be willing to move unless you paint the pain for them. So that idea of painting the pain is really big. If this was like a 2-hour long class or something, I'd probably turn this into a discussion. Spend a lot more time on it. But just for illustrative purposes, I'm kind of running through this like I would like a buzz session for a bunch of employees, where you are doing this in like a quick bit in maybe 30 minutes.
Todd, you hit on just a gold mine. Is, again, people are comfortable where they're at. It's called a comfort zone for a reason, people, is because I feel comfortable there. I feel comfortable with my email, the way it's set up, Todd. And so this, what I'm fearful of, if I change over to the new Outlook, I'm going to spend most of my time trying to figure out how I do my job. And I get too many emails in a day. I don't have time to change to this new version. Now, what you're doing is persuading me for a reason why. Like that benefit would outweigh the pain of changing. So that's what I love about what you're doing. And that's, again, why at the beginning of this conversation, and again, if you listen to our previous episode around ADKAR Adopt Framework, is you need to make me aware of why I would want to get out of my comfort zone. There is a cost to change. It might not be with monetary money, but the change of learning something new, there better be a massive benefit to me that I hold on to that's going to make me want to go through that and endure that. So, Todd, awesome job so far. I just want to point that out of the style of how you're approaching it, because most people go, oh yeah, that's easy. I've seen that before. No, the way Todd's doing this, there is secret sauce to how he's approaching this.
Now, the one thing that I think is really important to understand is, a lot of times when it comes down to training, and this is a big part of it, like depending on when you're going to train someone, the goal here isn't to train. The goal is to get the person to learn and to accept. And that's a big miss, is we tend to focus on, did I present all of the information to you?
Yep.
And one of the things you'll notice here, at least in the purpose of this session, is we went for maybe 5 minutes before you interrupted me. I did not spend a ton of time so far. And the goal here in what I was presenting wasn't to show you every single capability inside of Outlook. If I did, what I would have started with is, okay, everyone, welcome to today's session on Outlook. My name is Todd Kirk. The reason you think I am awesome is because I've been doing this a long time. And I think that Outlook is really great. Let me show you how to use Outlook. And then I would probably have started with like the most basic of things. So in Outlook, the way that you create a new message is you click on the big obvious button that all of you have seen before that says new. Now, I know that none of you have ever seen this. Oh, you all have? well, let me show you anyway to create a new message. And it's like that, like you've
Right.
already lost me, right?
Right.
So one of the things that's important is a lot of times when you're training, the goal, especially in a live training session, isn't to show them everything. The goal is to get them motivated and excited and have what I would call a whoa moment. And if you
Yes.
can create a whoa moment for the user, they're going to be motivated to search out and learn how to use it. That is way more important than you vomiting every single possible thing that's ever been said to the customer. So that's just a really key thing to think about. And it changes the dynamic and the feeling of your training if all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this is really cool. Now I'm getting excited and I'm feeling the buzz and I'm feeling the energy.
That's exactly right. Keep going, Todd. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, well, cool. Well, I am going to keep trying to sell you on Outlook, Casey,
Yeah, you're
because
getting
the
there.
new
You're
Outlook
getting
is
there.
amazing. Let me give you another oldie that is a goodie that a lot of people don't know about. So inside of Outlook, one of the capabilities that has always driven me crazy is if you see this is a conversation about 6 different email messages. And in the reading pane, you can expand to see the previous messages. Let's say I have this new thread about a fourth quarter project kickoff. And I've been copied on this thread, and you can notice, hey, Wanda, we're taking the measurement roll too. Oh, it's a typo, blah, blah, blah. And they're talking to me, and I'm like, what? Dude, thanks a lot, Will. But guess what? I'm not part of this team anymore. This is totally irrelevant to me. This is a message I don't really care about. One of the capabilities that I've always loved in Outlook that nobody knows about is this idea right here. So if I right click on the message, there's this button right here that's called ignore. And what ignore does is it takes a conversation that you're copied on. And a lot of you have probably heard of the reply all-itis disease, right? You have tons of different people all on a thread inside of an email. And one of the big challenges is that people keep talking and it keeps filling up your inbox every time somebody replies. What ignore does is it takes all the messages and any future messages associated with that conversation, and then it automatically deletes those messages. So I can be like, you know what, bam, I don't care about this thread. And it doesn't like call William a spammer. It says this conversation is irrelevant to me, right? So that's a really, really big deal and super, super helpful, and one that I would recommend that you take up. Now, one other piece here. So let's say I've got this message from my boss and there's this thread, and this thread is really critical because it's talking about onboarding training, and I want to reference this all the time. I could right click on this, and I can do something really, really awesome, which is pinning messages. And what pinning a message does is it puts it at the top of your inbox and it will always stay there. So why does that matter? Well, a lot of times you have to reference back to a message, or you have a pending action that you have to get done and you don't want to lose it. So pinning a message keeps it at the top of your inbox because we get tons of mail, right? So love that too. Now, let me give you one more bonus on how you can keep track of this. So let's say, go back to that same conversation. Let's say it wasn't that I wanted to ignore this conversation, but I knew it wasn't top of mind for me. It wasn't super important, but I want to get to it maybe like tomorrow or a week from now. So this is another really great feature that they've added into Outlook. So 2 things. One is I right-clicked before to show you like ignore and to show you pin. You can access the same feature right here. It's called snooze, but you can also access them from the ribbon up here, both in the like little simplified one or the expanded one. Snooze is really cool. So let's say this conversation is important to me, but I know I can't get to it till later. So I can say, actually, I want to get back to this next week, and it will take it out of my inbox and then resend the message to me a week from now. It's like snoozing your mail.
That's cool.
So isn't that cool? So you could take a message that's unread or that you have not read yet, or you could leave it as unread and then snooze it because you're like, I want to remember, I'm not going to be able to get to this, but I want to reply to them next week, and it will put it back into your inbox a week from now.
That's amazing.
Isn't that good? Okay,
that's
so that's another really awesome cleanup trick that, again, only available in the new Outlook, Casey. So you need to get off that legacy one and move over because it's going to make your life a lot different. Okay, let me show you one last piece that I love. So in the classic Outlook, there was this concept called a quick part, and quick parts were really powerful. And I think that if you're a longtime user of Outlook, one of the things that was so great about it is, let's say you had the same message that you replied to people with all the time. Yep. Well, a lot of people didn't want to move over to the new Outlook because that didn't exist in the new Outlook. And now they have something, it's a new name, Casey, but they still have a capability that exists. And so if you start a new message inside of the tool, there's some really cool capabilities that you can add in. You can attach files, you can attach polls, you can do some really neat things there. What I love, if you are going to reply in a message, is they have a new capability that you can add, but it's an app. And so this is a new concept because you could add third-party tools. You can actually embed like Slack and different things. The apps that you want to add is something called My Templates. And what My Templates does is it allows you to save a message, common response to Casey. No, I do not want to go to lunch with you. Okay. So now I can say that as a template. And anytime Casey asks me to go to lunch with him, I just paste that and it takes that in. So let's say it's a really long, complicated answer. Like here's an FAQ example. Like your
Right.
customer's always asking you the same question. You save it as a template and you just paste it into your message, right? Really, really awesome feature. And that replaces something called quick parts, which I actually think this works better because you have this pane, you can put it on the side, you can update them, remove them. Really, really great, really good experience. So if you like quick parts and you want to keep using them, My Templates is what it's called in the new Outlook. And that's how you would continue to take advantage of that. Now, let me show you my last little secret sauce piece here that's really, really helpful. And that's that you now have embedded capabilities with Copilot. So you see here where it says draft with Copilot. I could say, help me kindly tell my colleague that I can't go to lunch. And it will actually draft the messages for you using AI now. So it will automatically put it in. And if you are replying to an existing thread, it will use all of the thread context to keep that reply. So that way you can have it write your responses for you or draft responses for you, which is super, super helpful. Now, the other piece about it that I like is I can select this message. Let's say I wrote this message by myself. It wasn't put together by AI. You can also open with AI and get it to coach you on it. So one of the things that I struggle with a lot of times with customers is I feel like I'm going to say something that might sound offensive or too harsh. And I can get coaching. And funny enough, AI will coach itself. So even if you generate messages, you can go in and be like, hey, you did a pretty good job, but you might want to message like, maybe you should say, take care, looking forward to our next get together, because you don't want them to think you hate them because you can't go to lunch with them. But like it actually will give you feedback on how you can do it, and you can even apply those changes. In this case, it's going to redraft a version of its message and be like, here's version 2. So now I've got 2 versions and I can compare what it's done and be like, you know what, let's replace it. So now I've got a new version of that response. So if you struggle with good use cases for AI, this one is a really good one. Because it can help you quickly respond to customers. It can help you get coaching to make sure what you wrote up is not going to sound too harsh or dismissive or whatever, especially if you're dealing with a hard situation with your customer. So that can be a really good one too. So that's my last bit for you that I pulled together on Outlook. Casey, what do you think? Did I sell you on the use of the new Outlook, and are you going to change?
Sold, and yes. And the crazy part about that, everyone, is what we accomplished that in about 15 minutes. So again, if I was asked as a CSM or customer ed, and I had a customer that said, hey, I want you to come help do some training. We got some new hires. Tell you what, that's the approach I'm taking. I'm doing like 3 15-minute sessions, 3 30-minute sessions throughout a day, offering that. And then I'm pointing them at the beginning of the session saying, hey, I will provide you the training after this. What I'm creating is an awareness of what you could do, a better way to work. Because you nailed it when someone says, hey, Todd, how did you do that again? Hey, what was that one feature you showed again? Because you caught their attention, right? Is that not a better experience? But that's what drives that first component of awareness to desire, to knowledge, right? To that ability to actually changing the way that they actually work. TK, what other best practices would you give to our audience if they were being asked to do something similar to this, or takeaways that you would give people?
Yeah. So love that. Let me share a little piece of knowledge that most of you have probably heard of before, but there's this concept called the forgetting curve. And one of the things that is that can be really, really frustrating or difficult for people if they have done training before is that most people are going to forget it. So like as an example, you're going to only retain about 60% or so of what you learned 20 minutes after somebody taught you something. It's like everything I just told you today, you're going to forget 20 minutes from now. Sorry. Do your best. You're going to forget. By the time a day goes by, you're going to be down to about 30%. And by the time 31 days goes by, you're going to basically have forgotten like everything. So one of the things that is really important, if you don't take the time to reinforce what you've learned, you're going to really struggle. So that's why in the adopt framework, the thing that we tend to do is, one, we want to drive awareness. Awareness is going to be something you're going to do in lots of different ways. Maybe it's in a little 15-minute buzz session like I showed you here. Maybe it's through email messaging. Maybe it's through a short little video that you send out to the user. But one of the things that's really critical is you want to figure out, how do you get more people to be aware, and how do you get more
Right.
people to have that desire? So that's first thing. But then after you do all this stuff, all the cool stuff, maybe you got really excited about something I showed you today, right? But you're going to forget it. And so how do you make sure that that person doesn't forget? Well, you got to remind them. There's a lot of neuroscience that shows that you want to space out review. So it's important to review concepts days later, weeks later. Make sure that it comes back and back and back and back so that it can be stored in your long-term memory. Otherwise, you're just never going to remember it. And we want to ensure that we're encouraging people to participate and take action. So the last thing I did, Casey, is I said, are you going to switch? When are you going to switch? Are you motivated to switch? What other blockers would you have? How confident are you in your ability to switch? Do you intend to switch? Whatever that question might be, you need to make sure that you are inviting your listener to participate in the change, because if you don't, then they're never going to really solidify that change for themselves unless they begin to participate in that change. So those are a couple of other best practices that I would share.
Fantastic. I think, and you shared this on that episode again, where we talked about the DOT framework, ADKAR framework, change management. Basically, you talked about not stealing the wow. You talked about the wow, but you talked not about not stealing the wow. So again, if you're doing this virtually and you can see the audience, if you're in person and you see someone have a moment, Todd, I even remember you starting a presentation by saying, "Hey, if you have a moment where you're like, whoa, that was phenomenal, raise your hand and share with everybody else, so they can understand what you saw, why it's impactful to you." Or again, if you can get people sharing that experience with each other, to me, these type of sessions, what you want someone to walk away with is a feeling that that software is easy to use, it's powerful, and it's going to change my life. Like, I'm going to save time with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to impress upon you where to go click. I'm trying to impress upon you how you feel and why you want to make that change.
Yes.
That's what's going to last. That's what's going to get the person to go through and actually do the things that you want them to do. Todd, you want to comment on that? What do you want to say on that?
Yeah, I absolutely do. So two things. One, that idea of not stealing the wow, super important. And part of the way that I would do that in a longer form session is I would say, so do any of you have any questions about how this works? And if somebody says, does the software do this? Is that possible? Instead of going in and say, yes, and it's amazing because, what I might do instead is say, actually, let's try that right now.
Mm.
Okay, so everybody go with me. Let's go here, 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 click there. And then maybe I know that there's something really cool about it, but instead of telling them when they ask a question, if somebody's really engaged enough to know, is it possible to do X? Instead of saying, yes, and it's awesome because, that's stealing the wow, I would say, let's go try it. Click here,
Mm.
click here, click here. What'd you think? What happened? What did you notice? Now all of a sudden they're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
It can do that. What? Or that, not only can it do it, but I got it in like 2 seconds, whereas the way I used to do it might have taken me like an hour. So one of the things that's dangerous about being too excited to sell the value of the software is that you don't allow the person to have that human experience where they see it for themselves. So I think that's really important to understand. If and when you can do that, I always have to remind myself with that, especially in a sales conversation with a customer, they're going to ask a lot of questions. And my gut reaction, I will admit I'm not perfect at this. My gut reaction is usually to say yes and, right? Which
Mm.
mostly maybe it's because I loved improv and theater as a kid, and yes and is like the golden word, right? If you're doing improv, yes and is what you want to do. But what you don't, and you don't want to say no but either. So that's not the answer. Here it's, let's see together.
Mm.
Let's look together. Let me show you. And then they get to make that conclusion for themselves. And it's a very, very different experience when the user sees that it's going to be beneficial to them rather than you telling them it's going to be beneficial to them. So that's my one thing I would add about not stealing the wow, because I think that's a really important thing to try to learn. Can you be patient enough to let them experience it rather than you having to force it down their gut?
Fantastic. Todd, this has been awesome. I hope everyone enjoyed that. One, I hope you learned some tips just like I did. But two, you can envision how you might want to approach maybe one of your upcoming training sessions that you're being asked to do by your customers, right? If they're going to put you in front of their employees, hey, let's create a wow factor for them, right? Let's do something different. Todd, as always, with SaaS Therapy, we always leave our guests with a challenge. What's your challenge? What's your homework?
Well, if you are I guess first thing I would say is if you're a person who is in the training business specifically, let's say you're somebody who does traditional trainings, I would encourage you to reevaluate how you approach your trainings today and
Awesome.
think, what is the content that my customer would actually pay for? And the way you might think about it is look at your curriculum, look at your style, look at your approach. Is it following these rules? I am making the user an active participant. I'm driving awareness of things that I know are going to motivate them, get them excited. I'm allowing the user to discover new capabilities and connect dots for themselves, because ultimately you want to connect dots. And am I creating it in a way that is going to be consumable and exciting so that they go and do it on their own? Because if your whole goal with your training is to force feed every single knowledge bit down their throats, that's probably not going to be something that's going to be super impactful. And sure, maybe they'll sit through an 8-hour training, and sure, maybe they'll take a test and maybe pass it short term, but it's not going to become encoded in the way that it would otherwise if you focus on the elements that will drive change. So I would reevaluate how you're approaching it. And if you need help, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. That is like something that I love to think about, is what makes curriculum work. And having been in the business now for well over a decade, I've seen a lot of really great things. I'm happy to just give you advice. So feel free to reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a direct message, whatever. Happy to help.
That's awesome. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. As always, we're saving our most important relationships, our clients. And Todd, you just got the wow. Well done, buddy.
Okay, switch, Casey. Do it.
Not doing it right now.
SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.